Testing. Okay, finally, here we go. And just like that, it's the end of March already. Is time flying? Is that what they say? Is what's happening to me is what happens when you get older? The experience of time changes, or is it about being too busy, or is it California, or what? Is it the pandemic? The years are short, the days are long. Anyway, hey everybody, this is a podcast called Everything's Relative, and I am Eve Sturgis. We talk about shocking DNA discoveries here, all the ways that identities get turned on their heads if you find out you're not who you think you are, or your parents are not who they say they are, as the case may be. If it sounds complicated or impossible, please hang around for a while. You'll get it. Welcome. As I was saying, it's the end of March. Today is March 24th, and that is important because we are doing a book club Zoom party this Sunday, March 26th. And this episode is extra important because it is a conversation between me and the author of that book. The book is called Junkyard Girl, a Memoir of Ancestry, Family Secrets, and Second Chances. It is by the author Carlyn Montes De Oca. Carlyn Montes De Oca is a passionate animal advocate, international speaker, and multi-award-winning author of Dog as My Doctor, Cat as My Nurse. Carlyn has also been featured on ABC, CBS, and Women's Day magazine. A longtime resident of Northern California, she now lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico, with her husband, Ken Fisher, an award-winning sound editor, and their beloved rescue dog, Grace. Her latest book, a #1 Amazon bestseller, Junkyard Girl, a Memoir of Ancestry, Family Secrets, and Second Chances, is available now. If you are thinking that there isn't enough time to read the whole book before Sunday, who cares? Read it, or don't read it. Listen to this episode, and come meet us on Zoom on Sunday, March 26th. That's in 2 days. That's this Sunday from 5 to 7 Pacific time. Send me a message. I'll send you the Zoom invite. We try to keep it very low-key and casual, more about community than the books themselves. I really hope you can join us. So send me a message. I'll add you to the invite. We'll hang out on Sunday. Pour yourself a drink. Let's create some community around our DNA discoveries. But first, get a preview of this fun conversation that Carlyn and I had about her book, Junkyard Girl. So remind me how to pronounce your name so I don't do it wrong.
Like this. Carlyn.
Carlyn. Okay.
Carlyn. If you pronounce it wrong, don't worry about it.
Well,
it's not
nice
it's
of you
not
to say, but I want to get it right. Carlyn. I'm going to be like doing funny body motions all day. Carlyn.
So true.
So how has it been since the book has come out?
It's been amazing. It seems like it's just been one thing after another. And by that, I'm saying when the book first came out, it got pretty quickly to #1 on Amazon in one of its categories, which was really great. And I literally, since the day it came out, I probably hear from at least one to several people a day who've read the book and have said the most, incredible things, which for me, out of any book that I've written, that's really powerful because it's such an intimate story for me. It's such a personal story. It's about myself and my family growing up and discovering this unbelievable secret and moving through that and past that. So that's happened. I have had quite a bit of media interest in it. This month, it came out in Women's Day magazine. So that was kind of exciting.
That's cool.
And so there have been a lot of really great opportunities, but I think the thing that really has been the most just really gets me is when people reach out to me and this is a story about this adoption secret that I discovered, but I think it's layered with so many other things that people who did not grow up at all in the way that I did somehow relate to it. Mm-hmm. So it's been for a writer, for somebody who, loves to write and loves to tell stories, and that kind of connection to me is invaluable.
Well, I can imagine people relating to it for a few reasons. Because it's not just a story about adoption, right? I mean, you know this, but like, it's not just a story about adoption. It's also a story about growing up Latina. It's also about growing up with an overbearing mother. It's about, there's a lot about, Catholicism. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm sure people are connecting with, feeling out of place, looking back on looking back on and trying to figure out what was going on, even if it's not about adoption.
And also, I think one of the primary questions that we all ask ourselves, whether we're adopted or not, is who are we? Where do we come from? Where do we belong? And that definitely, I think, is probably at the core of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when was your DNA discovery? What year?
2019.
2019. Okay. So you're still kind of fresh in this. 4 years, right?
Well, yeah, we're coming right up on 4 years. And it's funny, depending on who you ask, the adoption community and late discovery adoptees, they get it. It's fresh. Everybody else is like, oh, that happened a while ago.
Oh, no. 2019 is very recent.
Right.
Pandemic notwithstanding. And so how do you feel? I mean, compared to how you felt about it first happened, would you say 3 years in, how have your feelings changed?
Well, as you might understand, that first year was tricky. And I don't know that, I think I was in such shock and that I didn't even allow myself to even understand how much shock I was in initially. But, it does go to tell you when actually I heard the words, Carlyn, you were adopted at birth, at age 57. That was the first time I had heard that. I literally stopped being able to really hear what my sister was saying to me. It's like my ears were full of cotton. I could only see her lips moving and I was really straining to hear. And I think that was my body's physical reaction to something that shocking. So that first year, and that's pretty much what I write about in my book, is that first year and how hard it was, also because the answers to so many questions, suddenly the floodgates opened and here come all the answers. And one was as shocking as the next. And so to such a point that I actually got the most physically ill I have ever been in my adult life. And that was, I was in bed for 6 weeks they couldn't figure out what was going on. So that first year was intense. The second year was better. And that's mostly because I started to write. I started to write the book. And then this third year, and also that was COVID. So that was an odd year as well. The third year, which was this last year, I think I've been doing, or I guess into the fourth year now, is really the best. I feel like I have been able to assimilate so many of the pieces now and come to a much deeper understanding of my family, where they came from. Also hearing a lot of other people, connecting with other LDAs and other people in the community and hearing their stories has helped me understand mine even better. So I think I'm in a pretty solid place. I imagine, though, that if I was thinking this the other day, that what if I wrote this memoir, if I had written it 2 years from now, how much different would it be? I think that every year will be different, and every year, depending on how much I allow it, it's like I can grow from that experience or understand other layers of it, and I think that might be happening for my whole life.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think, or I relate to that a lot, is the sort of, as time goes on, different pieces of perspectives on people's choices, or, just understanding your own process in different ways. I think it's really important to remember always going to evolve. Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear you say, you're at 3-4 year mark, because I just had a client. I have a client who has a DNA discovery, and as a therapist in my private practice, and she was saying, like, she's still in her first year, and she was saying, like, how long is this going to be? Like, how hard? How long is this going to be so hard? And I said, I think that the consensus, anecdotally, is about in the 3-4 year mark. That's what I said to her. So it's interesting to hear you also echo that it seems like first year is the worst. And then it does get better. So we can almost promise you that it will get better.
Well, my heart really goes out to her because I can so understand what that feels like. I had to really, I had 2 weeks after that where I think I was binging on vegan cookies and root beer.
Root beer. I just read that. That's so funny. I was just flipping through, just kind of reminding myself about it. I did read the whole thing, and I was like, oh, she bitch on cookies and root beer,
and watched like I think repeated episodes of The Walking Dead or something on Netflix. And then at the end of that, I'm like, God, I can't. How long can I go on like this? This is not going to be very helpful. And so I really did have to go back into my past and go, well, all right. So I've never learned I was adopted before, and this is one of the most the feeling of disorientation was so great and unsettling and tumultuous, but I have been through other situations that were somewhat traumatic, when you lose your parents, your parents pass, or I've been through divorce, I've been through other things. So I thought, well, what would be the best things? What did I learn from those experiences? And one of the biggest things, and I guess I'm thinking about it because of this woman who's going through her own difficult period, is not to push those feelings away, because that's what I used to do. And that does not work, or at least it does not work for me. And one of my biggest coping tools was, I call it the feel to heal, which is like, okay, whatever emotion, whatever negative feeling I think is coming up, it's like, let it move through. And part of my way was to recognize whatever it was I was feeling. Was it anger? Was it grief? Was it loss? And usually there were layers of it. And if I'd have a conversation with these feelings, it usually would be at the base was loss. And just to allow it. And I think that was one of the processes that has really helped me move through this. I think, as you say, 3 years isn't that long, but I feel pretty good and grounded now at the 4-year mark. And I think that was what helped me.
Yeah. Wow. That's really beautiful. Do you have any idea what gave you the thought to the thought to look back at past traumas and examine, okay, I've been through the thing before? Because not everybody would have the mindfulness to do that. Do you know why, or what brought you to do that smart move?
Right. I remembered, it's funny, I did on a totally unrelated topic, I did a TEDx talk about how my animals helped me when I was going through my divorce. And at that point, I was seeing a therapist, and she made the comment, one of the things you never do is cry. And I thought, well, I come from this family, we're not criers, the badge of honor is that you're stoic. Right. And I remember one night just sitting there in my apartment by myself. I was living in Redondo Beach at the time. And I was just sitting there and thinking about what she said, and my cats kind of came up to me, and one of them actually put his paws on my shoulders and literally looked into my eyes, and he had the most beautiful emerald eyes that were so intense, and I just burst out crying. And then my other cat came up onto my lap and started purring, and I guess my fear of feeling so much was literally a feeling that I would die. If I felt that much, I would turn into a puddle. Well, after I cried my heart out, I didn't turn into a puddle. I survived, and I felt stronger. So I think I remember reflecting on that time and thinking, okay, yeah, that was maybe the hardest time I had in recent years. So I am going to do that. And I'm going to do it this time as mindfully as I can, with some kind of faith in myself that if I did that, I would get to the other side, and there'd be some kind of wisdom or learning or something on the other side. So that's how I think I got to that point.
Wow. I'm so glad you did.
Me too.
I don't want anyone to go through traumas, but it's, I'm so relieved if someone can recognize their strength based on old traumas, that they know they can get through something. That can be so helpful. What was the biggest surprise for you while writing the book?
The biggest surprise while writing the book. Can I tell you what maybe my biggest surprise was right after I wrote the book?
Yes, of course.
Because I can't think of
No,
any
Carlyn,
surprises.
that was not the question. Yes, of course.
Well, it was just that, of course, I was, oh my goodness. Somebody told me, actually, a journalist told me that he took this quote from somebody else. He said that once you write your memoir, you have now betrayed your family. And I was like, oh no. And although I felt very strongly, and my sister, my adoptive sister who told me I was adopted, when I said to her, I'm not going to keep this as a secret anymore. I can't do that. And she said, you do whatever you need to do with your story. I took that to heart and wrote this book. But I still wondered, having such a massive extended family, I have 63 first cousins who incidentally
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, you're laughing because you know that they all knew I was adopted, but nobody ever told me. So I have this big family, and I wondered, because we all have a certain allegiance to my parents, who are the matriarch and patriarch of our family, and who commanded tremendous respect, including my own. And I have a loyalty to them. And I thought, okay, my parents have passed, but this massive amount of people, what are they going to think? And one by one, my family started sending me messages or writing, all of them really feeling like I felt their support tremendously. Not one of them said, God, I can't believe you wrote this. They all were supportive and loving and encouraging and everything you could want your family to be. So I think that was my biggest surprise.
Yeah. Oh, wow. How nice. Yeah. You're really gentle. You're really, I guess I would say gentle with your family, even though you expose things. But I feel like some adoptees would have been, and maybe you've gotten feedback about this, more angry. How do you respond to questions about that? Like, why aren't you more mad? They lied to you.
Right. I get that all the time.
Okay.
And if I had felt angry, I would have written that I was angry. It's just, if I had felt it, absolutely. But I didn't feel that. And, it's one of those, I don't want to sound too cliche, but I do believe on some level things happen for a reason, and things happen sometimes I feel I live in this paradox of I absolutely should have been told when I was a child that I was adopted. But I also now at this age understand who my parents were. And so I never felt angry with them because they never acted out of character.
It was on brand for them.
Totally on brand for them. And so therefore, it's like, I just sort of didn't feel angry. I definitely felt disappointment at my siblings. And at times I could feel anger towards them, mostly because I thought if the roles were reversed, I would have told them. I would have had no hesitation after my parents died, of course, to take some time and then kind of gently ease into it and let them know, because that's my story. I should know. It's not anybody else's story. Everybody else participated, but it's intrinsically my story. So they should have told me. But I also see that they were sworn to a promise as children that they felt an allegiance to uphold. And when I asked my sister over and over again, like, why wouldn't you tell me? We're so close. Why wouldn't you tell me? And she'd say the same thing over and over and then start crying. She'd say, I made a promise. I thought I was doing the right thing. I tried to protect you. And that's what my parents told her needed to be done. So I can't keep beating her up over that. I just get that it's a paradox. And if I had been more angry, I would have expressed it. But truthfully, the very first emotion that came after the shock was a huge amount of gratitude, because if my adopted mother had not stepped in, I may not have been here talking to you right now. Right. My birth mother wanted to either have an abortion. No, she wanted to have an abortion. So that was
right.
it.
There was only one thing she really, one way she saw. Yeah.
And I'm totally into a woman has a right to do whatever she wanted. Of course, it was the 60s. abortion was illegal everywhere, and she had the right to do, I believe, what she needed to do. But it's a different thing looking at, okay, I was a fetus then, but now I'm an adult who's had a very, to me, fulfilling, incredible life. It's just a little sobering to look back and go, wow, that almost did not happen for me.
Oh, you were very close.
Very close.
Very close call.
Right on the abyss.
Yeah, that's where it really gets complex, is the what ifs and the what does it all mean? Right? That's where it really gets. What was the hardest part about writing your book?
Well, I always try to write what is happening and try not to be entertaining thoughts of, will anybody read this? Will anybody care? Will people think it's weird? So those little moments would keep kind of tapping on me. And I'd just be like, it's okay, let it go, let it go, let it go. It's okay, let it go. It was this constant, so it's like little mosquitoes kind of nipping at you, just kind of tapping at you. And so it was maybe that process of settling in and just being okay and just going, okay, I hear you, but not now. This is not what I need to focus on. I need to focus on this story. So maybe those little unknowns.
Mm-hmm. Sure. All the self-doubt and self-criticism and contemporary ideology about ego and creativity and narcissism, all those ideas, right?
Well, and I had to get to a point of just thinking, okay, this is what it's going to be. This is the best I can do. That's my latest thing over the last few months, is I really tell myself, when I hear those little voices, I say, is this the best I can do? And if I can answer that honestly, that feels really good to me. It's the best I can do. I'm not like, okay, so it's not, I don't know, To Kill a Mockingbird or some great book, but it's the best I can do for now. And maybe I'll get there at some point. But so I try to have those kind of conversations with myself and to try to be mindful and, work on those other little voices that come in, because they all have something to teach me anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I actually just talked to someone yesterday, also in the LDA community, about people just doing their best. And if you go with that idea, including yourself, to me, it's just it really keeps me going. Everyone is trying their best. Did you know there was a writer comedian named Harris Whittles, and he had a tweet, which is such a funny thing to quote, but it was something like, everybody's just doing their best, man. And I just stick with that so much. It just helps. It helps me understand other people, and it helps me be patient with myself. So
it does. Though I do wonder sometimes, I don't know that everybody is doing the best they can.
I know. I'm like, although we all can come up with a million people who we think did not do their best in that moment. Right.
Right. So I can only really say that for myself.
Sure.
And with that way, I can be truthful. If I feel that I'm not doing the best I can, then I have to really have a little sit down and go, okay, what's going on here? What can I do better? So as long as I can answer that truthfully and authentically, because if you lie to yourself, I mean, you're lying to yourself.
Right. Yep. All of that is totally fair. It's the statement can be as deep or as shallow as you want it to be about who's doing their best. Absolutely. So do you feel like you learned anything about yourself while writing the book?
Yes. And that's going to be one of those questions I believe that I'm going to be answering forever in terms of new answers that come to me all of a sudden. I learned that I am much more resilient than I thought. And I thought I was pretty kind of resilient, but now I feel much more resilient. This whole idea of the truth sets you free. I really believe that. I did not consciously know I was adopted, and there was this big secret underlying things. And once it came to a head, and once it was out, I felt like I was completed somehow. Like I didn't know there was a piece missing, But now that it's there, I feel much more complete. I feel a lot. Initially, too, I felt like this severance happened between myself and my adoptive family. Like somehow the hatchet came down and it was cut. Our bond was cut. And that's part of what was making this so hard is like, oh my God, that loss. But that eventually turned into a sense of freedom for me because I felt like I am part of them and I'm apart from them. And that allows me now to make choices that I somehow didn't even comprehend before because I didn't know what it was like to lose your identity. So now I felt like I can choose my family. I can choose who that is and be okay with that choice and not really care what other people are thinking. So I feel like I expanded my family, not only to include the family I grew up with, but now I have a half sister that I discovered. And also I realize a lot of my friends are my family. You know, I'm a big animal lover and I'm a big supporter of adopting rescue dogs. And so I know that the animals that I bring in to live with in my home are part of my family too. So that was something I learned that was huge about chosen family, that blood does not feel like it's thicker than water, you know, that whole thing. But I also definitely feel that not to hold on to things too tightly anymore. I didn't know how strongly I was holding on to my identity because it never was a question.
Right.
And then when it was cut and it was sort of severed, I suddenly realized, wow, I had been holding on to that so tightly. And so that's part of the chosen family thing. And also part of, you know, the Tibetan monks that build that make those mandalas that are so beautiful in sand, and then they just sweep them away afterward. I think that's what I'm striving for with anything. Like, for example, in my relationships, I have a beautiful relationship with my husband. But anytime I start thinking about holding on too tightly, I'm like, let it go. Just let it go, because it creates a great sense of freedom in that relationship and in every relationship where I feel that. So anytime I feel like I'm holding on too tightly, I'm just cognizant of let it go and let it be what it's supposed to be. So I think those two lessons are two of my biggest lessons: chosen family and letting go.
Gosh, I love that. Let it be and let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are really crucial tenets, maybe for anybody in the DNA discovery world. But it's so hard to get there at first, or it can feel so impossible at first.
It can. And that's why I'm glad that we have communities of people that we can talk to, because then you see people who are ahead of you and hopefully they've learned a lot and you can get some wisdom from their experience. I mean, I'm always pulling wisdom from everybody else's lives, whether they're adopted or not.
What's your favorite part of the book? Or do you have a favorite part? Do you have a favorite part?
No, I don't have a favorite part, and probably that would shift day to day, but I definitely love the last chapter, which I shouldn't really talk about because it's the very end, but it has to do, you know, for all of us who love animals and find that they provide, so much nourishment and unconditional love in our lives. You know, this thought, Eve, came to me recently, and I don't remember where I started picking it up. I mean, I guess I knew this to some degree, but it's the idea that a lot of us who have animals, let's say who we rescue and we take them in, oftentimes we're trying to heal ourselves. Like with Grace, the dog that I took in, and anybody can read about in the book. I mean, she was in a very bad situation, in a hoarding situation here in northern New Mexico, and she was in a much worse condition than I was, certainly, when this was all happening. And when I took her in, I had to focus all of my efforts on helping her just rehabilitate and get used to a new life. And that took, you know, several months to really work with. But when it was over, gosh, I got the benefit of it too, because sometimes when we help others, you know, we help ourselves and we don't even know it's happening. So I guess for me, in the end, that whole story and how difficult it was for me to discover I was adopted and all I went through, in the end, it's like, you know, I got to the other side, and I got to the other side with Grace, my dog.
Yeah. Yes. Right. I know. Actually, I love that you post about Grace a lot on Facebook. I'm always like, oh, and I feel like I know her, that there's that, what's it called, where people feel like they have relationships with people just because they're online or whatever. And I'm always like, oh, it's Grace the dog. Like, I feel like I know the dog. I know Grace, or like not like I rescued her, but I'm like, I know, I don't know.
Well,
like,
thank you for saying that, because I'm hoping that, Grace is literally, she is unbelievable, like how she is in life. Literally, I think that dog is an old soul, and she's here, I think, to help, hopefully, other people to see that, you don't have to have a purebred dog to have a really great dog. I mean, she is a rescue dog. I mean, she still has scars from a mountain lion that attacked her on her back. Yeah.
Wow.
And people ask me about it all the time. And she is, yesterday in the dog park, this guy goes, Grace is the best behaved dog here. And I'm like, thank you.
That always feels good. Yeah. Yeah. She's a warrior.
She is a warrior. She's a warrior, and she's a bit of a Zen master too.
Yeah. Really graceful warrior. Really beautiful analogy for everything. Right.
So true. So true.
Great. Or metaphor. I don't know if it's an analogy or a metaphor. Are there questions that other interviewers have not asked that you feel you were ready for, or expecting, or wanting?
Goodness, nobody's asked me that question before.
I'm waiting for someone to be like, yeah, you didn't ask me what the name of the book was, or something like so obvious.
Oh, but did you ask me what the name of the book was?
Of course I will introduce it in the thing. The book is called Junkyard Girl. But no, but I mean, I'm always waiting for someone to say, like, yeah, everybody asks, like, I'm like, there must be something I'm missing for more, I don't know, there's more seasoned journalists who probably ask other questions that are interesting.
You know what? I think every journalist usually, I've actually really enjoyed this conversation because it's been so much of a conversation. And I know, you being a therapist, somebody who helps people in that way. I've enjoyed the questions you've asked kind of around that and around process and whatnot. So I don't know if there's a question. Just so you know, the book is actually called Junkyard Girl, and it's a memoir of ancestry, family secrets, and second chances. And one of the things people haven't asked me, but it is on the book, is that I am donating a percentage of my proceeds to help Animal Protection New Mexico, which is an organization here in Santa Fe that is helping to make humane the new normal.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it does say it. And the front cover is so lovely to have this little girl that's just got to be you with a dog, right?
It's crazy that it's not me, but that could have been me. Like everybody who sees that, who knows me, asks me, that was you, right? And that looks
did they
like
actually
my dog.
get a picture of you? Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I assumed it was an artist, but yeah. But especially now, and I've talked to you even twice now, and you have this dark hair. And I have little girls, so it's like that's got to be you. It's you. But yeah, your love for animals really comes through.
I know one question you could ask is, it's an interesting thing, don't you? And you've probably found this, is other people's reaction when they find out that this happened, that you're adopted, you're a late discovery adoptee. And I kind of would like if you asked me, what is it that you wish people had maybe said or not said to you?
Oh, yeah.
First,
let me ask. Let me ask that.
I think because it's useful. Well, one, I think it was very, very helpful to me to share my story as often as I could, because it helped me process it. So to all the people who heard it more than once or twice, thank you for listening. But the hardest thing to hear for me was an immediate, instead of hearing anything else, was an immediate, you should be grateful.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That is tough. That is tough. And it's tough because, okay, I did feel gratitude, but let me get there in my own time. I don't want somebody else to tell me how I should feel about anything, and particularly something of this magnitude. So I think what I would like people to say is almost nothing. I just want them to hear and, nods and then maybe, just listen. Listening can be so helpful for anybody going through this situation.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I hear that time and time again from the adoption community, from the from always known adoption community and the late discovery adoption community. Like, let us have our own journey around gratitude. Don't tell us the should be grateful thing. That really, or you must be grateful. Woo! Like, just, like, let's that's more complex than it sounds on the surface.
Yeah, it's just hard for people to tell you how you should feel when you're feeling already a bit traumatized by something.
Yeah, I'm always wary around the word should.
Should, I know.
Always. Just me. Let's just be real careful around that word. Absolutely. Well, this was just lovely. So, Carlyn, let's tell everybody where they can find your book.
Sure. Junkyard Girl, a memoir of ancestry, family secrets, and second chances. It's available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and anywhere that you order, that you want to, any bookstore can order it for you as well. I would also love to invite people, especially if you're animal lovers, come over to my website, which is animalhumanhealth.com. My focus is on really celebrating the animal-human bond and sharing with people the many extraordinary ways that our dogs and our cats and our animal friends can help us to live healthier, happier, and more extraordinary lives. So if you're into that, I have a newsletter and some freebies on there. So come visit animalhumanhealth.com.
Love it. Wonderful. Great. Yeah. And this book is great. I zoomed through it. Very, very full. And I didn't talk very much about it today. I did talk about it a little bit in the live. It's so important too, to also include Junkyard Girl in the library of this DNA discovery world, but especially you add a voice of diversity and your many, I think it's just important to come, that it's a whole, it could be a whole nother layer to come from a family of Mexican origin and to live in California. And this, you have a whole world that is underrepresented in the LDA community. So I was really grateful for that as soon as I found out about it.
Thank you. And also too, it's like it was also, my parents were immigrants from Mexico and I was a first generation Latina. So there's a whole other dynamic when that comes into play.
Yeah. Just gets more and more complex. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me a second time.
Well, yeah. I'm very grateful. I mean, I loved you from the get-go. I love so I'm thank you. So I'm so happy to connect with you and with your audience too.
I mean, come on, read the book. I'm so grateful for Carlyn's willingness to try new things out with me. She was a total champ last fall when I did my very first Instagram live. It was 20 minutes of absolute chaos and hilarity of two women who were clearly not born into the digital age, but we're doing our best to keep up with all the ways we're supposed to be present on the media. I think you can find it on my Instagram. Make sure you're following me there at Everything Relative Podcast. Maybe one day I'll try to do a live thing again. The only way to know is to follow me over there on Instagram at Everything's Relative Podcast. If social media isn't your thing, but you want to connect with me, my email address is eve@everythingsrelativepodcast.com, or you can go to my website, everythingsrelativepodcast.com. That is also where you will find a link to Carlyn's book, Junkyard Girl, and all the books we've talked about on this show. Head over there for books and resources, including the process journal that I created last year called Who Even Am I Anymore? Hey, one important thing before I go this week. One important thing. There will not be a new episode next week, March 31st. Next week is March 31st. There will not be a new episode. There will not be a new episode because I'm going to be at the Untangling Our Roots Summit 2023 in Louisville, Kentucky, where I hope I get to meet some of you. So please come find me. I'm very excited to connect. It's going to be a fun time, and I'll be right back. I'll be right back just a few days later, but the episodes will be back in April. We'll have new episodes and regular scheduled programming. Anyway, thank you so much for being a part of this project, listening, subscribing, sharing, and otherwise supporting me as we continue to have conversations about DNA discoveries. If I don't see you on Sunday at our book club Zoom party, I hope I see you soon somewhere else. And in the meantime, walk the dogs, clear your plates, and don't forget to start the dishwasher before you go to bed. I'm Eve Sturgis. This is Everything's Relative Podcast. Bye-bye.
Everything's Relative with Eve Sturgis is produced by Eve Sturgis and Carlyn Egan and edited by Joy Rumel. Logo designed by Ivy McNally, and music is used with permission from Goodbye the Band. Eve is a licensed psychotherapist, but her podcast episodes are not therapy sessions.
He is not a rescue.
Okay, well, let's see.
But let's see. Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash.
Oh, there he is.
Is he?
He's a golden retriever.
He's a golden, yeah.
And he's really mellow, and he
does he walk the line?
Yeah, of course, walks the line. He howls Ring of Fire for us every evening. And now, of course, we're like, we should have gotten two and had a June. How did we not think? I mean, we shouldn't have two dogs. But speaking of shoulds,
well, do you know what June Carter's daughter's name is?
No,
Carlyn.
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Oh, see, full circle. It's all synchronistic. It's all synchronistic.